Sako versus Remington Extractors, Mills and MOAs, and semi-automatic rifles. This week on Mail Call Mondays. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. We're here on another Monday, and our first question today comes from Sia. Sia asks, given the current progression of machining, do you ever see bolt guns leaving the work environment? My AR-10 drives tacks. Almost makes me want to get out of the bolt world. Your thoughts? Well, when we're talking about the work environment, I would assume that you are talking about a military or law enforcement sniper or a designated marksman. In that kind of environment, really, we're not worried about skating the razor's edge of accuracy. 1 minute angle is sufficient to accomplish the majority of tasks that you're going to encounter in those situations. So for that, I really think these semi-automatic rifles do have an advantage. For one, this is a rifle that you can gunfight with. So if you're a police sniper and you're moving into your final firing position and you're getting ready to set up, you come around the side of a building and there's the gunman right there and you need to engage him. I would much rather do so with a semi-automatic 308 and a 20-round magazine than with a bolt-action 308 and a 5 or 10-round magazine. You're just going to be so much more effective at close-quarter gunfighting with this kind of rifle than you would be with a bolt gun. Now, as far as actually if bolt guns will ever leave the workplace, the big drawback to semi-automatic rifles is their price. Now, this is a Mega Arms MOA 10. It's not a super expensive rifle, but it's not a cheap rifle either. To get the same level of accuracy between bolt guns and semi-automatic guns, you are going to spend more for the semi-automatic rifle. Because remember, we're not just looking for accuracy, we're looking for accuracy and reliability as well. So you want high quality parts, high quality machining, and a good level of quality control. In that case, the bolt gun is going to be cheaper than a semi-automatic gun, but I really think for law enforcement snipers, the semi-automatic rifle is a better tool. Now, if you really start reaching out and you really need to skate that razor's edge of accuracy, then the bolt guns still have an advantage. So I don't think bolt guns for competition are going to go away anytime soon, but I think for a practical military or law enforcement standpoint, for that intermediate engagement range, 800 and in, then I really think a semi-automatic rifle is a good way to go if you have the budget to not cheap out on them and get a good system. Our next question comes from Andrew. Andrew asks, what's an easy formula to learn for MOA turret with a mill reticle? Well, the easiest thing I can tell you, if you're running an old scope with a MOA turret and a mill reticle, you want to keep in your mind that one MOA is 1.047 inches at 100 yards. One mil is 3.6 inches at 100 yards. Now that's kind of confusing at first, but really the conversion factor that you need to keep in mind is 3.5. You need to remember that there are going to be approximately 3.5 minutes of angle in each mil. So if I'm looking through the scope and I fire a shot downrange and that shot impacts 1 mil to the left, then I'm going to need to dial 3.5 minutes of angle right to make a correction. It's not exact, but it's close enough to be able to do the math in your head and get a good adjustment. So really 3.5 is going to be a good conversion factor from mils to MOA. So just get in your head 1 mil equals 3.5 MOA. Not mathematically, but for a practical application downrange. Sean asks, I've noticed that the 175 grain Sierra Match King is the gold standard for long-range 308 Winchester. In doing some research, I saw some lighter bullets with better ballistic coefficients. The better BC bullets are generally heavier bullets. What are the advantages/disadvantages of shooting lighter bullets with better ballistic coefficients? Thanks as always. Well, generally, if you can find a lighter bullet with a better ballistic coefficient than a comparable heavier bullet, then the lighter bullet with the better BC is the way to go. Ballistic coefficient and velocity is what's going to result in your wind drift downrange. A better BC bullet that is lighter will be able to be shot at a higher velocity. That higher velocity will equate to less time of flight. Less time of flight will equate to less wind drift downrange. Additionally, a lighter bullet will be able to be fired flatter than a comparable heavier bullet in the same cartridge in the same rifle. So if you can go with a lighter high BC bullet, then that's the way to go. The 175 grain Sierra Match King is a great bullet for intermediate level stuff. If you're not able to run bullets screaming fast through your gun, say for instance you're using a 16-inch barrel like what I have in front of me, then the 175 grain Match King is a good bullet. It works really well in those 2600 to 2700 foot per second velocity range. If you have a system that you can really scream bullets out of with the lighter weight bullets and you can get a higher ballistic coefficient bullet, then that will be the way to go. That will give you a better ballistic solution downrange. Josh asks, what are the benefits to having a Sako style extractor versus the basic Remington 700? Really, this has been pushed for a long time. I don't like taking a well-functioning Remington 700 and chopping out the side of the bolt and installing an M16 or a Sako style extractor. The issue there is you are removing one of the rings of safety that Remington's designed into their action, and you're now giving a path for gases to vent if you have a case failure. With the regular Remington clip type extractor, that bolt face is a continuous circle and it provides one of your safety measures. I only suggest replacing it if you have a problem that replacing the clip type extractor has not solved, and it's something that you can definitely look at and say, okay, it's the extractor that's causing the problem. I really have not encountered a whole lot of problems with the clip type extractors. The one thing you need to keep in mind with a Remington clip extractor is you do not remove it unless you intend to replace it with a new one. You don't need to pop them out and clean behind them. There's just no need for that stuff. Just take your GP brush and scrub it with a GP brush. If you need to get down behind there and get dirt, water, etc. out, grab some carb cleaner and blast it out with carb cleaner or brake cleaner or gun scrubber or any of that stuff. Do not pop that clip extractor out. If you pop the clip extractor out, you need to replace it with a new one. I really believe that a lot of the complaints that you get on Remington clip extractors are because people have taken them out, they've goofed around with them, and then put them back in and run into all kinds of problems. So if you need to replace it, pop it out, pop a new one in. We actually have a video that we did on how to replace the extractor a long time ago, and I will link to that down in the description below. But I just really don't see it as necessary. I see it as an added expense that a lot of guys try to sell people on for no reason whatsoever. If I am buying an action or a bolt that already has that installed, I'm not going to fight it and try to go the other direction, but I'm not going to cut up a Remington bolt just to install an M16 or a Sako extractor for no particular reason. Randy asks, would like to get your thoughts on the current gun control / gun confiscation stuff that's going on, and how you as a former armed force and current police officer will react if orders come down the chain to enforce laws that go against the constitutional freedoms we Americans have. Well, Randy, first of all, I swore an oath way back in the day to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Furthermore, as a police officer, I'm bound by the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution. Anything that I do has to be legal under the Bill of Rights. Pretty much the short of it is, if I'm given an order that is immoral or illegal under the Bill of Rights of the U.S. Constitution, then I'm not going to do it. That's my responsibility. It's my duty, first of all, as a citizen, but secondly, as a police officer and a veteran, that I not obey orders that are illegal or immoral. And I would hope that most other police officers out there feel the same way that I do. I know there are a ton of veterans out there that feel the same way that I do. So that's the simple answer. It's just not going to happen. Now, luckily for me, I have plenty of recourse Should I choose to disobey an order on constitutional or moral grounds, if I can prove that that was the case, then I'm probably going to be okay. But you know, what it comes down to is looking at yourself in the mirror every morning. You have to do what you believe is right, and I don't believe that blindly following orders is ever the good way to go. So if there's a question, those questions need to be answered. If the answers are not satisfactory, then I have the duty to refuse to follow those orders and accept the consequences that result from that. So hopefully that answers your question there. Jesse asks, energy on target. Does the move to lighter 6mm and 6.5mm calibers for target shooting sacrifice too much stopping power in real-world situations? Well, Jesse, it depends upon what real-world situation that you're dealing with. As far as military or law enforcement situations, the real-world situation would be reducing a human target, and 6mm and 6.5mm both carry plenty of energy to be able to do that. Now, if we're talking about penetrating barriers, then 6mm and 6.5mm, because they are smaller, lighter projectiles comparatively, have a little bit more problems penetrating those until you get into some really specialized bullets. Then when you get into the specialized bullets, you sacrifice fragmentation and energy transfer for extended penetration. So it's really going to come down to the design of the bullet and the specific instance. I really think that most police departments are hung up on 308 because that's what the military uses, and that's what traditionally has been the law enforcement round. I think there are plenty of situations where a 6.5 would be a better option. There are plenty of situations where I think a 6mm might be a better option because you have a flatter trajectory and you really actually have less penetration with a lot of these 6mm rounds because they're hitting with very high velocity and they're a smaller, lighter bullet that will fragment and come apart quicker. So as far as the energy delivery on target, it's just going to depend upon the exact situation on what you intend to use the bullets for and what you're trying to shoot through. As far as hunting, again, depends on the game animal that you're trying to go after. Philip asks, full-length resizing for semi-auto rifle. Is the expander ball necessary? Without the expander ball, full-length resizing is less of a chore. This is for plinking ammo. Well, I'm not really sure what you're talking about as far as resizing without the full-length or without the expander ball being easier. What we're trying to do with a semi-automatic rifle is make sure that the cartridge will reliably chamber. The expander ball really affects the case neck more than it does the shoulder of the cartridge. When we're resizing for a semi-auto, we want to push the shoulder of the cartridge back just a little bit. I recommend 2 to 3 thousandths in order to make sure that the cartridge reliably chambers in the rifle every time. To do that, you're going to have to full-length resize. Now, when you full-length resize, it's really, in my opinion, better to go ahead for semi-auto, again, not for bolt guns. When we're full-length resizing for a semi-auto, it's my opinion that it's better just to do all the processes in once. Size the neck and or push the shoulder back in one process. You do have the ability, if you want to use something like a Lee collet die, to size the neck and then use a body die. For instance, the Redding makes a body-only die just to push that shoulder back. But then you're running each cartridge through the press twice, and you still have to lube the case because you're still going to get drag on it from the body die. So you're really not saving any time versus just going ahead, lubing up those cases and running them through a full-length sizer that has been backed off to bump the shoulder 2 to 3 thousandths. So I wouldn't mess with removing the expander ball. I'd go ahead and just get your full-length sizing die set up, back it off until you're sizing 2 to 3 thousandths smaller than your fired case length, and then go from there. Now, when I say length, I'm talking about head space from the shoulder, the datum line on the shoulder, to the head of the case. So go ahead and set it to bump back 2 to 3 thousandths on the shoulder, and you'll be good to go. And that's good for plinking ammo or even match ammo. That's generally what I do for my precision match ammo. Our next question is from Brandon. And Brandon asks, what's your opinion on the Marine Corps using optics for rifle qualification? Semper Fi. Well, Brandon, Semper Fi to you. And it's been quite some time since I've been out of the Marine Corps, and we were issued the M16A2 back in the day. And the only provision for mounting optics on that was the hole in the charging handle that you could mount an ACOG to. And we were only given those when we deployed. My belief is that because every Marine is a rifleman, and I don't know that right now the Marine Corps is issuing ACOGs for every M16 in the Corps, that every Marine still be trained on how to use the iron sights properly at long range out to 500 yards. Now, as far as infantry units and qualification, if those infantry units are deploying with ACOGs on their rifles, which I believe they are currently, then those Marines need to qualify with those optics to prove that they are combat ready with the rifle as configured when it goes out. I do still believe that there needs to be some practice with the iron sights, because if something happens to that ACOG and it needs to be jettisoned, they still need to be combat effective with iron sights. So while qualification, proving that you're combat ready, should be done with the rifle the way it's issued and the way it's intended to carry it into combat, I think they should go with the optics. They still need to be able to fight as a rifleman with just iron sights. That's all we have for this week. Remember, if you've liked the video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you got any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. And until next week, get out and shoot!